Ah, thank you, Brad.
So yeah, I had a quick question, Marianne, which is I was wondering how, or thinking about how comfortable the library trustees would be with making some estimate of an additional fundraising goal beyond what the impressive amount that you've raised already, that could be factored into, or I guess subtracted from the, the not to exceed number. I'm just, I guess the option is, I mean, I think that you presented was to calculate it based on the current fundraising level. But I'm wondering how you would feel about sort of adding some, conservative incremental sort of guess to that, and thereby making, probably not a massive difference, but perhaps some modest difference in what we would need to ask for at town meeting.
So, so the MBLC, so the Friends of the Library have a capital campaign goal, which they're unveiling at the grant celebration on Sunday. But the MBLC will accept cash on hand and signed pledges. So our friends group hasn't done the type of capital campaign where they have solicited signed pledges.
I see.
Sometimes projects are, I mean, this project has been going on for so long, but that hasn't been the approach that our town has taken. So we can't promise money that isn't committed with signed pledges, and there isn't time to get a significant amount of signed pledges. Okay, but good question. I asked that question.
Brad,
too.
is your hand up regarding this topic or something else?
This is related to that topic.
Yes, Susie, if you just hang on a second.
Yep.
So what we have these numbers from the MBLC, and there are various ways that we intend to keep working to lower the cost. One of them is what you just mentioned, AJ, is raising more money. And as Marianne said, the MBLC will only work with concrete money. And so we can't factor that into the total price, but we know that will be a reduction in the price eventually. Another bit of that is there are a number of expectations in there where the MBLC is asking us to essentially budget something at list price if you bought it in a store, and we don't intend to do that with everything. And so there are a number of other savings we intend to do there as well, but it's the same deal. We have to live with the MBLC's number, knowing that we continue to aim to reduce that that number.
Okay, Susie.
Could we have those numbers in print? I can't keep track of numbers unless I see them in writing. So Marianne, do you have them in print that you could email them to this meeting?
Yeah, I was going to ask them for the minutes as well. I couldn't quite get them all.
You're on mute, Marianne.
So, there's I can't share them in a chat. Do you want me to just email them to
Jim.
you and to AJ, or if I email it to FinCom, do you all get that, or should I just try and do each individual person?
I would get that, but I would send it to the committee.
Yeah, if you
Okay.
send it to me, I can send it to everybody.
Okay, I'll send it to Becky. Okay. There's one other thing. So the first, once we have the grant and we're moving forward, the first thing the MBLC does is they give us a $300,000 payment on July 1st, and we start the design phase. And then once we have a design, we get a cost estimate again, and then we have a firmer cost. So then if the costs were wildly different, we would have that information at that time, but that's after we've started the process. There we go. Okay, I sent it, Becky.
Thank you.
All right.
So we're looking at something like the not to exceed number was, did you say was 2950? That's the
Right.
proposal. And then we're looking at
Right.
something over 600,000 that's already been.
That we
been-
can subtract from it.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we're probably in the
So-
2.3 million range, roughly.
I'll do that math. Okay, the total match that we have is 619,881. And then it's 2950. Yep, okay.
What would the state be contributing at that, with that scenario? Mary Ann?
Brad, do you have that on that, can you find that quickly on that spreadsheet, Brad?
So the state,
4,000,009, yeah.
the state grant would be just shy of 5 million, 4,976,337.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Yeah, I don't know if the right person to ask this question is Brad or Mary Ann, but I'm thinking about the times, we all know the times we live in and how crazy things are in many industries, particularly in the building industry now. So assuming that we go forward with this formula of the not to exceed number, whatever that is, and then we sign up for this for an architect and we go ahead and get a design and an estimate, and then we find that at whatever point in time that is, a year or more from now, that things are wildly more expensive. What do we do then? Do you have any idea of how we would handle that?
Bob, that's sort of predicting the future. So the $2,950,000 number includes a $500,000 contingency for just that thing. The actual estimated costs are that smaller number that I shared. With this not to exceed figure, and that's why, so the trustees had asked the MBLC early in the process, last summer, if we could propose a not to exceed figure, and they agreed that we could propose a not to exceed figure if it included a contingency. And so that's one safeguard. Another safeguard is that the cost estimate includes escalations. It includes pricing for construction starting in June 2023. And also, I just said that the first part will be that we'll start a design phase with a $300,000 appropriation from the grant. And if we get the cost estimate and it's, I don't know, some outrageous number, then we sit and have a conversation as a community about whether or not we move forward. And we can walk away at that point.
So you've established that with the MLBCs? That's an
I
option.
just said that. I just said that whole very thing before you asked the question. Yep.
I didn't understand that, so
Yeah.
I apologize. But
No.
okay, so yeah, fine, thank you.
Susie?
And I know that the MBLC, when they met with us a long time ago, February, somewhere in there, that they had a plan to pay for money that came in over the cost estimate at, I believe, a rate of 75%. Is that still on the table?
Yes. So if, so they're going to pay 75% of the actual eligible costs of the project. So if the project is $15 million, and the eligible costs are $15 million. They'll pay oh no, they'll only pay up to 6 million. That's right. Up to
They-
$6 million.
They set their
So-
own cap.
That's right. Yes.
And that's
But-
what, and that was what was used to figure out our not to exceed number? Or-
Well, no, so this grant it's just under 5 million. Because that's the estimate that we
Yeah.
have. That,
Okay.
but the grant is for up to $6 million.
Okay, Brad. Or
No.
Becky, were you going to comment on that topic or?
No, no.
Okay,
I
yeah,
just-
Brad.
So this is following up on what Marianne said. The process we've gone through, the whole estimating process is built to cover every contingency that the MBLC could come up with. There are, we've had quite a number of discussions saying, well, why do you have to plan for that much? And the answer is what Bob was bringing up. We don't know what building prices are going to be. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff put into this in case building prices skyrocket. That's already built in. And we're hoping we don't have to go there. But we've planned for it. And as Marianne said, if that's not enough, then we have to have another conversation.
Becky, and then AJ.
I just wanted to comment on the concept of not to exceed. My understanding is where, I have no concept what Kate was trying to accomplish in her language with not to exceed, but legally it just, it puts us at the $2.9 million number as the number we have to pass, with an editorial about $500,000 not being included in an estimate, a current estimate that we have, which doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, if they're allowing us to go with the $2.444 million number, and much of what we've already seen, we know, I don't understand why we wouldn't go with a lower number. And the not to exceed concept is only there to make sure I think it's a procedural thing where if we say not to exceed $1.4 million for a library, it means that if it comes in at $1.3 million, 100,000 goes back to the source fund. No warrant article, in no case with a warrant article can we spend more money, even if the not to exceed comment isn't there. I mean, if the warrant article is 1.4 million, you can't spend more than 1.4 million if you have that language in or if you don't. So I have no clue what they're trying to do with it, using that concept in a debt exclusion warrant article. So I would like to hear more from the trustees about. Doesn't
Shall I-
have to be now.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah, and then AJ.
That helps me the way you described that. I believe the MBLC's intention is if we went the lower number, I think their intention is not the expectation that it's fixed, that it's just an estimate, and it might go higher. And if we wanted to choose one number, to me, what you're describing is the same thing Kate's talking about with not to exceed. If there is one and only one number that we can use and it can't go above that, then that's the not to exceed, and it has to be the higher of the two.
AJ.
All right, I was going to ask a different
Thank you.
question. So is there more discussion about the not to exceed number?
Well, if there was, I would think Becky,
Okay.
who's moved on. So why don't you go ahead, AJ?
Okay. So, you know what? I'm sorry. Why don't you come back to me? Because now I'm in the process of listening to that question. I've not forgotten
Okay.
that response. I forgot what my question was, so I'm sure I'll remember in a minute.
All right. Looks like Bob is ready to go.
Yeah, I suppose I'll direct this question to Brad. Brad, I remember reading somewhere recently that the estimate that came back from the contractor that worked for the state was 3.3 million would be our share of the cost on the library. And then I saw a number tonight of 2.95, I believe. And then I saw another number, or at least heard one spoken about here, I think, of 2.45 before a $500,000 contingency. So, okay, am I right about those numbers?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah, okay, so I do understand the idea of the contingency, but I don't understand how the estimate went down from 3.3 to 2.45.
The 3.3 to the 2.950, that change was because Marianne primarily, the rest of us trustees contributed too, but she talked with the MBLC and went over in great detail about various numbers. And the MBLC said, oh, and let's lower these. So that's the result of taking the original number. Marianne, are you going to correct me? Okay,
No.
you go.
I'm just going to sort of add to it. So, so we went through the estimate line by line, moved some things from one column into another. So some things from eligible into ineligible and vice versa. And we removed some things and we removed redundancies. So, so the estimate was done on a building program, and it included things that we didn't specify in our building program. And so it was, so that's, and then some of that 3.3 is soft costs. So there's the base construction cost and then site work and then soft cost. And so when you remove things, that percentage for the soft costs comes down. So so that's what it was. The initial estimate was a draft that we reviewed, and in the course of reviewing it and removing things like $4,500 flagpole and $5,000 dumpster enclosure when there isn't going to be a dumpster. When we did things in a $1,500 trash can, and and different things like that. So when we did that, we then had it, more accurately reflect our building program. We also took out plantings. So the estimate, the RLB estimate called for quite a lot of plantings, and the Shutesbury Gardening Club has been planning the gardens and the planting for this project for years, and we're not going to spend $93,000 on planting. So we took that out.
The big picture, we had that first estimate, Bob, that you were talking about. And as I said, Marianne, she's just giving you all the detail, but the big picture, she worked with them and lowered it by a quite significant amount. That was all based on one particular estimate process. And then we went and got another estimate, and that's the lower number. The MBLC recognizes that and thinks it's a reasonable estimate, but is still requiring us to use their estimated number. That's why there's two.
Now, just to make sure we're all clear, when you say two numbers, you're comparing the 2950 to the 24. Is that what? Okay. I just want to make sure.
Not really.
No, not really.
Not really. So the 2950 and the 2,445,000. The difference between those is really a difference in the soft cost. So so the contingency. It's not really. So the RLB estimate, which is the one that the MBLC had prepared, their estimators recommended adding 40% in soft costs. And we used Fennessy Consulting Services, and they recommended adding a lower amount of soft costs. And the MBLC, even the 2,445,000 is higher than the Fennessy estimate. And because the MBLC then reached out to a number of owners, project managers, who are the professionals that are actually, working through the projects. And I also consulted with an owner's project manager, because they're the ones that are seeing the projects come through in real time today. And so, so they are really seeing that projects are coming in as high as this project has been estimated at. So that's it. But the difference between the two numbers is an effort on the MBLC's part to help us come up with a number that that meets the cost of the project and is also a number that the town can support.
Okay, Becky. You're on mute.
I'm sorry, I didn't put my hand down.
Oh, okay, AJ.
All right, so I remembered my question. And I don't expect you to have this, but right now, but it might be a useful follow-up. I'm curious if you have any data that you can share at some point on kind of the recent history of MBLC new library construction projects and where those final costs came in at relative to the sort of official estimated costs that their town warrants were based on. Because I think the message that I think you've shared with us is that there's sort of good reason for us to view the MBLC's estimate as sort of conservative, or even like beyond conservative. But that might be useful context for town members to consider, just to allay maybe some of the fear about whether this might actually come in at an even higher number than what the MBLC has already estimated, which seems like a very high number. So anyway, that's just kind of a request, if that's possible.
The problem with that is that the projects that so there are two things in play. So there's projects that there's construction, and then there's small construction, and a small building costs more to build per square foot than a larger building, right? So they're, in the past 10 years, they've done two small projects. The Irving Library, which was 8,300 square feet, and the Monterey Library, which was about 4,000 square feet. And I can get the cost per square foot for both of those, but it's much less than the cost per square footage that's in these estimates, because the costs have escalated so much over the past 2 years.
I guess I'm interested in those numbers, but I'm also interested in knowing what the original estimated costs were.
Okay.
And then what the actual final costs were, because I'm wondering if there is kind of a pattern where by design those estimates are
all right.
quite high.
And we asked that question when they came out to visit in February, and sometimes the projects come in, sometimes the projects come in at the estimate, sometimes they come in below, and sometimes they come in above. And I think with this pilot project, they're really being careful and they did their best to have a fully vetted number, and we did our best to have a fully vetted number, and under very volatile circumstances. But I'll ask them for data on that.
Thank you.
Right, Susie,
I think there's some details that are still being looked at. The MBLC came through with this whole process very late in the game, and it's put a lot of pressure on coming through with more information. That's hard to get together. But I'm wondering if the Finance Committee wants to begin a discussion now about what their feelings are in terms of library funding possibilities.
Oh, and so the number, when you take the 2950 and subtract 619, it comes to $2,330,119. So why don't we call it 2,330,000? I emailed it to Becky. But that's 2330119 is the number.
let's see, George. George has his hand up.
You're
You're
muted.
muted, George.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on the road, so things aren't where they should be. I was just reading an email because Becky did forward it to us. There's a slight math error, I believe. The first two lines, the 252 and the 304, those are going to equal 556, not 562. So the 619 is slightly overstated. It's not material to this conversation, but I just wanted you to be aware. It should be 614. I'm sorry. 557, 456 plus the. Shoot, I can't operate this.
What numbers are you adding?
Looking at the local.
252, the 252 and the 304 add up to 557. You got them as 562. I think I have to jump back.
Oh, I see.
It's minor, but I just want everybody to be aware, that's all.
Okay,
It's not going to make a difference on the conversation.
Okay.
So we need to
All
talk
right.
about it anymore, but I just
Yeah.
wanted you to,
okay,
because you're 2,330,000, I get 2,335,000.
okay, that's fine. Go with your numbers, George.
Okay, that's when I subtract out the three numbers you gave there, plus the 4,976,337 from the state. It looks like we would have to borrow 2,335,000 at this very moment before we talked about any other sources beyond those. That's it.
Okay, Susie threw a question out there about this 2 million, now 2,335,000
Could you
and
please repeat it?
2,300 and,
No, Susie's question.
funding scenarios. I believe.
Mhm.
That's why I interpreted it.
Right.
So we should probably look at our model that we were using last week for capital spending, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Do you have it? George, I made you a co-host.
I do have it. Would you like me to pull it up?
That'd be great.
And I'm sorry to tell you this, but I am probably going to have to Amscray within the next half hour. So. Oh, it says I can't, Becky.
Oh, maybe because you, sorry, George.
No
Let me
problem.
Find you.
Okay, well, George is,
I got it.
you're gearing up. Wheezy, did you have a question that you wanted to Okay, you're on mute.
Sorry. God, I'm sorry. Thank you. I was wondering if we're going to be using any free cash on this.
So easy. Here's the model on the screen. Does everybody see it?
I gotta lower my hand. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Let me.
And that's what Susie's alluding to, is what are the different options we're going to look at for funding this? So certainly that's an option. We just need to talk about it.
Okay, thanks.
So if you look at this, we have, so everybody understands, these are capital projects that we know about. These are going to be warrant articles. These right here are going to be warrant articles. We've already approved, the finance committee, how these are going to be financed. It's not to say that they're etched in stone. We still could change it if this conversation made sense to do other things. But right now, the warrant articles for 4 items are going to be funded by free cash for these amounts. And then there's one more article that's going to be requesting a capital stabilization transfer. And then we know we're going to have the school roof. We don't know how much it's going to be. That is the purpose of the engineering study. And we don't know if we're going to win the grant or not. We're certainly crossing our fingers. So if we win, once we know the estimate, we'll throw it in here. And once we know the grant, we'll put it in here. Yes or no, 0 or some other amount. And then we'll see what we're going to do. We'll end up with a borrowing amount. Let me just throw those in real quick. If these were the numbers, and then we'd end up with a borrowing amount, and we'd have to think about how would we fund that. That's kind of what we've been doing, and that's the purpose of this model. For the library, the numbers I heard today are these two numbers right here. If you look at the top, we know that the grant would be 4,976,337. We'd end up with, coming up on our own, 2,950,000. So it looks like the total cost of the project is 7.9 million. In this cell, other, we've got the 252, and these are the numbers that came from Mary Ann. They're right here on this spot here. And so I just took those, and I dropped them in here. The 252, the 304, the land for 57, plus the grant that we were told earlier. And that's how I come up with the 2,335,000. Now, for everybody's information, Becky and the treasurer, Brian, have been talking to the bank, and they got information from the bank as to what our interest rate will be, and the effective interest rate over the course of a 20-year loan would be 3.82, is the estimate that they told us to use. They told the town of Shutesbury to use. This number here, the amount to be borrowed, can be decreased by the amounts that we enter in here, as you can see, is the way this model works. So if we threw something in, we can see that our borrowing amount goes down. If we went straight borrowing at this very moment, without applying any of these other categories, we have free cash, capital stabilization, and stabilization. But right now, we're not using any of those. We're just subtracting these amounts I just mentioned. Then at 382, principal balance over 20 years, the first year's interest and principal over 20 years would be 116.7. Interest just under 90 grand for a total debt service of 206. That impact on the taxpayer, the addition to the tax rate, using a debt exclusion override would be $228 is the estimate. That's using the current year's assessed values, which is a bit low. I think it's low, but anyways, that's essentially how this model works. We can determine what level of funding do we want to provide to this from these other options that we have. This does not account for any possible fundraising that we might receive. But as we change this number here, we can see the impact on the first year's debt service. Interest will decrease each year. Principal will stay the same. But as the balance goes down, the interest cost will decrease. This 206 will decrease annually. And so will this 228 that the average taxpayer who has a $270,000 home would be paying in year one. Does that all make sense to everyone?
Yeah, I just have add one more comment, George. You said this doesn't include any additional contributions. And on the other hand, it also does not include, this is as I understand it, like a worst case scenario. We're not gonna spend more than this. right? There's a lot of what's called soft money.
Yeah, basically what Mary Ann told us, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, lots of hands are up. Let's start with Brad and then Bob.
George, could you go back to the library cost cell in that? I have a different number than you.
Okay,
I can't see what you put in it, but what I have from the, well, this is a little problem because the MBLC rounded off some numbers. Let me see if I can do that. Oh, maybe that's the difference. Okay, never mind. I think that's fine.
yeah, Brad, you can see what's in the cell if you look up higher here. I've got it highlighted.
Yeah,
It's-
Brad, but it's hard to see. Just go into view options and you can blow it up and make it a little bigger.
It's basically the 2,950,000 plus the 4,976,337
Yeah,
is
I
what
agree with
makes
that.
up that.
Sorry. It
Okay.
doesn't match their spreadsheet, but that's just because they did their own rounding later. So never mind, I'm done.
All right, Bob.
I just want to bring up the school roof because we don't have it in the chart at the moment. And it's a major requirement in our spending plan. I believe we should be funding it. As you know, Finance Committee knows, I think we should be funding it this year for construction. And then
Yeah,
there
Bob,
is an
Bob, let's finish the library first. And I think all of us on the finance
Well, we're
committee
talking
are
about
on
the
board,
spreadsheet.
are
It's
on
gonna
board
im-
with the school roof for this year.
It's an impacting.
We're all on
this-
board and we're on the.
I'd like to
we're on
finish
the
what I'm going to
library.
say. Is that all right? Please?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
I'd like to finish what I'm going to say. Is that all right?
Well, I think we get into that topic later.
It's going to impact.
We're
the
gonna
use of-
cover all the warrants later, Bob. Right now we're on the library.
Right now,
And-
we're doing
No,
comprehensive a treatment of this spreadsheet, and that's part of it. And there's no values in it.
I would agree with Bob. We should be looking at all the numbers. I don't know about the rest of the finance committee, but if we're going to do the analysis of what it's going to cost for the library, we want to look at the bigger picture. It's the purpose of the spreadsheet.
and
whether
we'll
this
get
is the
to-
appropriate time or not.
And we will get to that. We will get
Okay.
to that. That's all on the agenda.
But George will be gone.
Yeah, I have to leave probably within the next 20 minutes. Hopefully not. If they're late, I will stay late.
George, do you have the track figures? I should look for those. I'll get those.
Everything they've sent us about the track is always the debt service numbers and not the capital expenditures. So I don't know that we have that number.
We do have track numbers. We received those from Doug Slaughter.
We received debt service numbers on an annual basis, but we didn't receive what our capital costs would be if we decided to fund them with cash from CPA or any other source. All as we know is if they borrow for the whole thing, what our debt service would be. And that's not necessarily what I think we want to do. I think we agreed that CPA was on the table for one funding source, but I don't think Doug gave us that kind of information, did he? Yeah,
No,
I
you're
agree.
right. Well, they do. It's all listed in the warrant articles and broken out. So,
Oh, yeah, all right. I haven't seen that.
okay.
So if you've got those numbers, we should drop those in. The thing to remember about the roof and the track in the regional school roof is the debt service on those or the funding of those is 2 or 3 years out, I believe. I mean, we should talk about that too.
Yeah. Yeah, but you're right. We don't have. Yeah, it's hard to figure out when money will be due, other than the schedule they did.
Yeah, and when it'll be due and what our portion of the actual capital cost that we could use cash for is. Those are two important pieces.
And if we just looked at the annual assessment, you can't do it in this fashion.
Oh, can't tell.
Right. We don't have the information for that. How do I raise my hand when I've got the screen share?
Just say so. You can't.
At some point I will. I don't want to jump in front of everybody, but I would like to get in the queue if I could.
Okay, how about after Brad?
Sure.
Susie. And I just gonna ask for people that aren't part of the committee just if we get one input, we've got a big agenda tonight, and if people that aren't part of the committee could just get their points out with one go around, we much appreciate it.
Okay, I have advocated consistently to use the financial guidelines that were approved by the Select Board and the Finance Committee in 2018. And so when George provided this spreadsheet that could be moved around, I have a proposal that will maintain 10% in free cash and 5% or better in stabilization funds, and uses some of the debt capacity that's been built into our budget, but not all of it. So I would like to put those numbers out there. And then it has, yeah, so that's what I would like to put out there. So you want to look at that now?
Go for it.
All right.
So Susie, you're saying that some of these numbers on here, you would like to
Change.
make some changes?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me know what you're
Yep.
thinking.
So in order to do that, in order to maintain those benchmarks, I am proposing that where does this go? The dump truck would be moved over to borrowing. And that would leave $6K left in the debt service line. And I believe $6K allows a $25,000 further borrowing. So over into the dump truck, the dump truck goes over into the borrowing. Where is that? It's in your,
Well, I've got it here on the screen if you're trying to find the
Yep.
numbers.
yeah.
So
okay.
what I was going to say, so what everybody should understand is this 201 for the culvert, which we know we have to borrow for in fiscal 23, and then the dump truck presumably in fiscal 23. In Susie's scenario, that we'd be borrowing 426 in fiscal 23, just to be redundant. Principal payment year one on a 5-year note is 85, interest would be 21. So 106.5 would be our first year debt service, which is under the 113 that we currently have built in the operating budget for debt service.
And it looks like a 5-year commitment.
That's what I'm using as an estimate. I'm not sure that's the right estimate. We could make it 4,
Right.
and
the
we'd
next,
still be close. Okay,
and the next things are to use some of our town's reserves for the library. I'm proposing that we would use 300,000 from free cash, 250 from cap stabilization, and 250 from regular stabilization.
borrowing 1.5 million brings us to debt service in year one of 135. Average annual impact 150.
So that is a total of, I don't see it in
And
this.
here's your free
column.
cash. Here's your percentages too.
Right, yeah, so so it actually leaves, more in capitals and in the 2 stabilization funds, and right at 10% in the free cash one, and that brings 800K to the library out of these reserves.
Okay, I think if we're going to go through this exercise, we have to plug something in here for the truck or for the roof, for the school roof.
So one thing I want to point out about the roof is that we have the engineering study there. We have agreed that if we have to move forward, we've agreed that we have an application into the MSBA, and we have gotten our legislator working hard for us on this, Natalie. And if it doesn't come through, then part of my goal in leaving monies in the free cash and stabilization is to meet an emergency process for the roof. And we wouldn't need all of it at once, is my understanding. And we don't know what all of it adds up to, because that engineering study will tell us what that is.
Okay, I just think we need to include that scenario.
So-
If we're gonna, based on what we know today about possible funding, I think we need to include that scenario.
So George, if you used what we had in the capital plan, like you've started to do repeatedly, that makes sense.
50% from the state.
Yeah. And I would recommend the other 50% from our reserves somehow.
So, yeah, the good news is, one thing we didn't do here is we didn't show any new free cash being generated, but we know we're going to generate free cash in FY22, and we'll probably generate free cash in 23 as well. Also, Susie, I understand the concept of this percentage here and wanting to have it for emergencies. I think that's what free cash is for. I think we're in a moment of time, in a moment of history in the town of Shutesbury, where going below 6% on the stabilization is acceptable. I think we can go down to 4 or 5% personally. So that's just one person's opinion on the finance committee, and I'm jumping ahead of Bob and Jen and Brad, but certainly I think we need to consider that we are at a really strange time, not necessarily just for the library, but for those other things that we're looking at the regional school, because we know that those are on the horizon as well.
Okay, I think, Becky, you going to reply to that?
I was just going to add that we should be putting in I think we need to figure out how to put in the American Rescue money. It's $525,000, and we can use it on the library. I don't believe we can use it on the roof, but I will double check.
It would be another other, we would just add
Yeah,
it to all
it
these
would be
other numbers.
another other. That's where you would put it. And I think you could use, so say you use 200,000 of that towards the roof and 200 of that towards the library.
We could use it towards the roof?
If we don't use it towards the roof, I mean, I think we can use it towards I'm not positive on the roof, but
But you're saying 200,000.
yeah.
That's news to me, Becky. So is there sort of relaxed guidance?
Well, I'm not
on
sure about the
how-
roof. It could, the last meeting I went to, things are happening, a lot looser, but I don't know if we can use it towards the roof. But I do know we can use it for the library. So maybe if not take quite as much of the cap of, maybe use the stabilization money towards the roof and then backfill it through the ARPA money. Did you see what I was saying, George?
I do. I'm kind of interested what the rest of the finance committee thinks,
Yeah.
and also what amount we think we should use. I'll put in anything there. Do you have a number, Becky, that you'd like me to? You said 200,000.
Yeah,
Are you saying 200,000 in the roof and 200,000 in the library?
yeah.
Okay.
200,000 stabilization or ARPA?
ARPA.
All right. So, I don't have ARPA in here, so I just need to add it. So.
Yeah.
Oops. I got to be careful what I'm doing here. Okay. So back to this then. I shouldn't have gotten rid of what I did earlier. And then another 200 in the library.
Yeah. We're going
Towards
to
the
remember all these numbers, George?
Well, they're here. I'm going to save this. Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
know what they are. Between a bunch of us, we will. So that was a little more money than, that would have been nice. More like that. So-
Bob, is your hand up from before?
Yeah, no, I wasn't able to speak before, so I kept it up there.
Okay.
I started to speak about the roof. Now everybody else is talking about it, so maybe I can talk about it now. Look, this has to be looked at comprehensively, and I can see what's happening here. Susie wants to put a lot of our reserves into the library to lower the amount of the loan that we'd have to take to build the new library. But there's kind of a whack-a-mole going on here too. We all know that if we have to borrow money to do other things, to transfer reserves to the library, we're essentially borrowing money for the library for those things too. If we were planning on using our reserves to do capital purchases, which is what our capital stabilizations accounts are for, and then we start funding those by loans, and then we use the money from the library. Let's be open and straightforward about this. There's also $250,000 or $60,000 in an account that was set aside by the taxpayer for the library over time over the last 10 years. So we're talking about well over $1 million now from reserves going towards this amount. I think that's a lot. I think that the school roof, people say that I was throwing numbers around at the last meeting when I got an estimate from a roofing engineer for the cost of constructing the new school roof. And now what I see with the estimate for the library and a lot of these estimates for other monies that might be coming in, I see a lot of numbers being thrown around. I would like to be more disciplined about the way we construct this nice document that this Rubik's Cube that George has designed. But really, we should be definitely putting first priority on the school roof. It's a real problem. It's going to cost money. We've saved money. We've talked about it every year as a part of the reason we accumulated reserves. Let's pay for it. Let's put it in our budget now for this year. That's my view.
Jen, you
Hi.
see you up.
Great, thank you. I just want to make a couple of comments. I'm going to keep it super brief, and I appreciate really what you guys are doing. I have not sat through one of these meetings before, and it's mind bending. And George, you are a master of spreadsheets. I need you to come help me with some stuff. But we can talk about that later.
Thank you, Jen.
I want to put out there, I have been fundraising for the library for probably 20 years at this point, actually probably more than that. I've been contributing to, within the town's reserves since I've lived here. And I just want to stick it out there that I would like to see some of what I've been contributing going to the library. I think there's no doubt we're going to pay for a school roof. That is like a red herring thing. Of course we're going to do that. And I'm not appreciating at all what's going on in next door Shutesbury with this hysteria posts, and it's not helping anything. I mean, I sort of followed what Susie said, and it made a lot of sense to me. ARPA sounds like a great thing. That's wonderful. The library supports everybody in town. And I just want to throw it out there that please, I've been throwing a lot of money into this town, and I would love to see some reserves go towards that. And I also would like to see all of the inflammatory language. I mean, the idea that we've given $250,000 to the library, that was voted on every year at town meeting. That's not fair to say oh, we've already given them $250,000. That's, again, it's inflammatory language that's trying to start a debate that is inappropriate in this case. That was specifically voted on for the library. It's not free cash. It's not a reserve. It was intended for that purpose. So let's use it for that purpose. Let's put some reserves in. Let's build a library before the cost gets double again. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay. Brad. You're on mute.
I couldn't find the mute button. So this is just a question. I don't know the answer to this. I expect that a very large portion of the expense for the library will not hit in the next fiscal year at all. This is a multi-year project. I don't know how that impacts George, how that impacts your planning here. And I don't know what portion of it we would hit us next year. We're going through the design phase, and the design is being paid by the MBLC. The construction won't start till a good deal after that. So anyway, I don't know what that means, but I don't expect, I think this is saying that the entire amount is going to hit and it would be borrowed for next year. And I'm not sure that's true.
That is correct. So the timing of all this, particularly for all the pending items, those clearly are not going to be impacting FY23. And in regard to the library, it looks like, if we were to follow Susie's recommendations, these expenditures out of the cash reserves would not occur until at least FY24, depending on the timing of everything. And the big part, the important part of this model, the one thing we can talk about is how it's going to impact the taxpayer, is really what I think a lot of people in town meeting are going to focus. And so what's important here is, what is that borrowing amount really going to be, so that we can see what it's going to cost. So that, I don't think the timing of that is not so important for our annual town meeting coming up, as it is understanding how we're going to fund this project and obviously what the annual impact will be.
Thanks.
So Jim, is it my turn?
Yes, it can be.
Susie, if you don't mind.
You didn't just finish?
No, I'm just starting.
Oh, okay.
So what I wanted to say is, I agree with Bob, and everybody agrees with Bob. I know they do. The school roof is imperative. There's no question it has to be done. I believe that we can probably fund everything here. I do want to say, I know that Jen's points about what we're hearing on Shutesbury next door, I've heard some people make some comments. I've certainly am aware that we're all aware of what we're heading towards in terms of the debate about the library. I think the Finance Committee's job has got to be to assume that everything is going to pass and to make sure that we come up with the best possible way for the town to afford all these things over the course of the next 3 years. We're not going to help ourselves in any way by debating or trying to create a scenario that could hurt the library or weigh everything towards the library. What we need to do is be financial professionals in how we conduct ourselves in this moment. And so that's a comment I just want to get out there. We're not the ones who are going to decide whether this project passes or not. I don't want to be that person. And I don't want the Finance Committee to say, yes, we should do it, or no, we shouldn't. I want the Finance Committee, this is one man's opinion on the committee, to have a recommendation of what is the best way to finance this library if this warrant article passes and if the ballot vote passes. So, in terms of that, so I do want to point out there's a real benefit to what Susie is doing here. And I want everybody to think differently from a financial management point of view. The more money we put towards the library, the less we're financing over 20 years. What Susie has done here is lowered the impact. Now, we all understand debt exclusion overrides. We all understand that we have an operating budget. We've been paying all our capital projects, paying for all our capital projects up to this point in time over the last 15 years by basically leaving 2% of the operating budget, dedicating 2% of the operating budget to debt service. And so we've been able to keep debt service from causing fluctuations in our tax rate. In fact, it hasn't really increased our tax rate at all, that we bought all these things. And that's wonderful. Looking at what we have here, this is the portion that comes out of the operating budget. And right now, by adding this 175, it exceeds what we've been doing. So the question is, from my perspective, is if we lower this number, this is 20 years. We're going to be paying this for 20 years. It will come out of the tax rate, which is great. And that's the effect on each individual's. But we do want to find the balance between our operating budget piece and our debt exclusion override piece. This is a little higher than what we've been doing by about $35,000, which is really not a big increase. And it's a number I think we've been shy on anyways, because we've never adjusted for inflation. We've been using the same $113,000 for a long, long time, while everything else in the budget has been increasing. That's something to consider. So when you're all, and I'll be done in a second, when you're all considering this, I would just ask everybody to think in terms of how do we want to balance the short term versus the long term. The short term debt being here and the long term debt being there. The portion that is built within our operating budget, and maybe we want to increase that portion to this starting in FY23, and then the portion of this for the next 20 years. Now, this is the high number and it goes down. And that's what I have to say.
Okay, Susie.
So I guess I need a recap from George. George, you're saying the fiscal planning could be that we bump up our operating budget line to cover 150,000 for the debt service instead of 113. And the gain in that is some of those expenses are out of there in a pretty short window. But I guess the other, so I think that's what you were saying. But the other
Yes.
piece I wanted to say is that the scenario that maintains the standards and landmarks that are in our guidance, our guidelines, that model leaves an debt excluded override, and that gives the townspeople a vote. So we would have to vote at town meeting to use some of these funds because they require a 2/3 vote, and we would need to vote at town meeting to move towards an override. And so there's a town meeting vote, and then there's an override vote. And that, to me, is part of the democracy. We are asking the people, and we're laying out something that can ask them that question. And then one other piece is that interest rates are lower now than they will be, and that we can take advantage of it. Carrying debt is another part of our guidelines, and this will meet that criteria.
Okay. Amanda.
Yeah, thank you. This has all been very interesting, I must say. And the financial sleight of hand has been very interesting as well, but very confusing. But I'd just like to say that I think that with all the machinations you've done, we're essentially going to wind up borrowing about the same amount of money. Becky has been pretty clear that she doesn't know what ARPA funds will be used for. You will be able to use them for the roof. You will be able to use them for the library. And so taking all that money that you've just taken off the screen out from the school roof, we're still going to wind up borrowing for that instead of putting that money on the library where it belongs. I simply don't see why you're not funding the roof, which has been a problem for many, many years as an existing building. The library just came up last year. That's a very new project. Seems to me, first things should come first. And I just wanted to put that out there because, you're not going to agree with me. I understand that, but I do want it to be on the record because I feel it's disingenuous to try to shave money off of the borrowing for the library to make it more palatable to the voters. Then we're just going to turn around and borrow more for a truck, for this, for that, for the roof. And saying that it's not going to happen for 2 or 3 years is somehow supposed to make it better. It's still going to go on the tax rate. We're all going to be paying for it. So I just think that you should at least put it all where it should be. Put it all on the library because that's really what you're gunning for. Everything else is being pushed aside. And as far as next door goes, I don't think, I'm sure you're talking about me, people like me, who don't want our taxes to go up, but we've been very clear about that and transparent. It's not that, we hate the library. Just wanted to say that I think that these particular changes you're making are just kind of hiding. Like what Bob says, we should deal with the priority that we've known about for many years, which is the school. Thank you.
Okay. AJ.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say one thing quickly in response. This is our job as a finance committee, is to look at these capital expenses and come up with the best funding model. It was always assumed that there would be some combination of transfers from our reserve accounts and borrowing to accomplish these projects. So I'm not sure. I don't think anything's being hidden. So, but anyway, my comment that I wanted to make is, George, I was wondering if in your model right now assumes that I think it was $150,000 of the school roof project would be borrowed. And I'm wondering if we moved that over from borrowing to one of the stabilization accounts, does that still keep us above the 5%? I think we were at somewhere around 6% right now. If we did that, does that keep us at above the 5% of 5% in stabilization accounts kind of guideline that we've been following?
So I need to leave. I just
I
forwarded the
understand,
model.
yeah.
I forward the model to Jim and Becky, so
Okay.
they can bring it up and they can
Okay,
show
great.
you. I took it off
Yeah.
my screen and I don't have it, so I'm sorry I have to leave. I really wanted to be part of this, but I'm sure there'll be more.
Mhm.
Yep.
Thank you
Thanks,
all. Have a
George.
good night. Bye.
Okay, thanks, George.
Bye.
Becky,
What the idea that I have been thinking about, well, when we made all those first Susie transfers, I really also feel that that at least savings should go, funds should go into the roof project as well as any other money. And I think I would like to see that chart as soon as, I don't know, Jim, are you pulling it up while I'm?
I just pulled it up. So if I can,
Yeah, can you share it?
share, if you give me share.
Oh, I did give you share earlier on. I think you should be
Oh,
able to.
okay. All right.
Yeah, and I'm pulling it up too in case you don't.
Okay, let's see.
Do you have it shared, Jim?
Yeah.
Great.
Can you guys see it?
The file's not open yet.
Oh, okay. Let me,
My
I think
file's
you were
open.
sharing it wrong.
why
wrong
don't you
screen.
go ahead then? Why don't you go ahead then, Becky, if you have yours
Okay.
open?
Share. Why isn't it working? Capital funding. Is that working?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so
It's working, but we only see your files, not an open file.
Oh, I see it.
I'm seeing it.
Oh, okay.
So Becky,
All right.
I was suggesting that, right now we're on the school roof line, we've got $175,000 needing to be borrowed. If we put that, if we put $175,000 from stabilization, all right, so that drops us now to
Right.
3.9% of in our stabilization accounts, which is below where we want to be, right?
so if I did, AJ, so if we reduced the 250 from stabilization for the library to 75.
Yeah.
I think the numbers are back up there.
Yeah.
And that's my concern, was that too much reserves was going into the library, and that, we don't know where we're going to end up. If we don't get the grant, we're going to need more. And I just want to be ready and able to address that. The thing about the reserves for me, I think George made great points, but my concern is if you commit all of these, so much of our reserves to capital projects where the money won't be coming due for 2 or 3 years, you've got a bigger problem than if you have passed a single debt exclusion for the library, because, nothing's being spent before, until year 3. But with this, we lose these funds for 2 years. And it might not matter. I mean, we have to make sure that we can operate and function and carry on with all other needs in the town. But that's why I would be careful how far we go on the allocation of our reserves.
Hey, Bob,
Yeah, I just want to echo what Becky is saying, makes a good point here. If we put all these reserves aside at town meeting this year, and they'll be sequestered, so we won't be able to use them for any other purpose, even though they may not be spent for 2 or 3 years. If we pass a single debt exclusion override, we'll be borrowing money as we use it, and we will not be paying for it until we pull it out. Is that true, Becky?
Right, you can't go out to borrow until the project is complete.
Right. So I think that first, that's one point you made, and I agree with you on that. It kind of argues in favor of using less reserves in this line. The other thing I want to point out is we do not, going back to the school roof, we do not know we're getting the state money, but that's in this formula, and that's a big assumption that we cannot take, because we have some track record here. We know that we've failed to get that money for several years in a row. And again, so I think I put a high priority on this. The building committee voted to support putting aside construction money this year. I still feel strongly that that's a good thing to do. But Becky says we're going to learn before town meeting about whether or not we're successful, or at least possibly. That will make a difference. But at this point, we do not have I don't have any confidence that we're going to receive that money. So it should not be in our sheet here. It's an iffy thing.
can you highlight that 575, Becky? So right now we've got, you're including,
That also would be,
Includes
there's been
ARPA.
200,000 added
Right.
from ARPA money to, that's why it's 575.
And that's iffy too, is it not?
Well, we're playing, Bob. The whole purpose is to
I
brainstorm.
know, but I'm just
Bob, if, let's say, for example, the 200 doesn't qualify for the roof, it would qualify for the library. So then we'd move it to the library, and then we'd have 200,000 available somewhere else for the roof.
Is that something that the library, that ARPA money could be used for the library, Becky?
Yes.
The Fitchburg Library is using ARPA money for their project that's in design right now.
I see.
Yeah, so Bob, like Becky said, we're looking at different scenarios here.
I know that.
But we do know we can use that 400,000 somewhere in our capital spending plan here.
And I wonder what that does to our possible whole building and ventilation notion that we were entertaining, Becky. Any idea?
Well, it still leaves like 150,000 left for
That's,
the ventilation.
yeah, that's not going to cover it, but
Yeah.
so that would be, so, we only have, that's interesting that this money can be used for these other purposes. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, one other thing, when we're talking about the timing, why the timing now for library? And that is because this is when the award is available now. And I look at some of these projects, we got a $225,000 dump truck. We're going to spend $225,000 on it, and we're going to get a $225,000 dump truck. For the library, we're going to spend $1.5 million, and we're going to get an $8 million library. And I think we got to think about that type of thing when we need to consider the town assets, value of the town, what brings value to the town. And I think we have to put something like that into consideration. We're not just talking capital projects here, but the value that the town gets for these capital projects. The library's done an incredible job to win this award. And as a result, we have an opportunity to spend 1.5 million to get an $8 million asset. So just something to consider. I think, is Becky next? Or Susie? Susie, are you next, or?
Well, I just had a little mention that a lot of people want to worry about the roof, but it would be a more effective, instead of squabbling, to write to our legislators, write to the MSBA and be on them, because they can have an effect on this for us, and we want to advocate for ourselves there.
Okay,
Jim, just to jump in, I guess, I'm kind of liking the numbers I see here. I mean, I feel like we're accomplishing a few goals. We're not depleting our reserves below the recommended guidelines, which is important, especially given the upcoming obligation we're going to have to the regional school committee. We're investing sort of healthy. I mean, we're funding all of the projects that are before us. We're keeping under the $113,000 sort of budget for debt service. So I don't know. I mean, I think my gut tells me that this is a pretty good. This looks like it accomplishes kind of some pretty important goals for us. So I'm pretty pleased with how this looks.
yeah, I think I'm sort of in the same place, AJ. The one question I just got like a clarification on, I think, Becca, you've commented on this before, and this is your answer to Bob's question, is we don't get state funding for the roof. What your proposal as a backup plan?
Okay, so that's on this line.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's subtracting. What did you?
375 they have in there from the state. So you
well,
have-
what we would do, you probably would do is you take that $200,000 out of there and just change the library to 400 instead of 200.
Okay.
Yeah, and then change the library. Yeah, change that 200,000 in the library to 400,000,
Why?
because you're just moving it from the roof to the library. We have $400,000 of ARPA funding that's available that the library qualifies for.
So if we do that, then we take 200 from. Oops, 200,000. And subtract. Okay, I took 200 from there.
No, but I was going to say, take that 200 from there and just move it add it to the library. See where it's got
Right.
200,000 there in the library?
Yep.
That would go to 4.
That would go to 400.
Oh, that's an easier way to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. But this, I need to, I think we just want to,
Yeah.
there.
Just take that
Yeah,
200
because
out of there.
Yeah, so if we don't get the grant, the purpose was to say, okay, if we don't get the grant,
Yeah.
everything we've done still leaves us a balance of 375,000.
Yes. That's my question.
So this,
What's our backup plan for that 375?
right, I was just looking at the proportion. So this is 1.3 is about out of 2.3. Wasn't the total we're trying to fund basically 2.3? Yeah. Okay, so like 40%, we're funding it almost 40% with reserves and, oh, I don't know what to do. Any suggestions on how to come up with the other 375?
Yeah, that's really my question.
Yeah,
So
I have a suggestion, which is what I think we should take it out of reserves.
Yeah.
We should plan, and if we don't need it, then it stays in reserves. But it's a good way to to have plan B activatable within our budget. So it should be reserves that will fund the money if the state doesn't come through. Right?
But the bottom line is, right now, the roof, it's 50% from reserves. Our balance is a little under, it's like 40% from reserves for the library.
Well, the library is a lot higher number, and it's also not as essential expense as the school roof, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
And that is 100% opinion.
Yeah, well, it is my opinion, so
Yeah.
I'm voicing.
Yeah, a lot of people value both of them the same.
I
Susie,
I feel that we could take the balance of 375 out of free cash. And if we get the grant, it goes back into free cash. It would bring our free cash under 10%. And there's not, I feel like this would be one of those occasions where we could understand to do that. And so that's my suggestion.
That's what I said, Susie, same thing.
Yeah, I
So,
didn't
yeah.
know I didn't know where you were thinking, Bob, so that's what I'm clarifying. It goes out of free cash.
are we have an agreement on this?
Could be. Watch the space.
And that's the beauty of this, the way the spreadsheet is laid out. It's a nice, straightforward way to look at a lot of different scenarios and
Yeah.
and also
mean-
come to some conclusions as to whether we have something that we can live with or we can't live with.
I mean, it's definitely a worst case scenario because it's assuming that 2 of those funding sources are not available for the roof. It assumes no ARPA and no MSBA. I mean, this,
And it
the
also
free-
assumes that we spend everything that's the total soft
Yeah.
money.
I mean, the free cash ending balance here, it looks really scary, but I guess that's what we're discussing here is kind of a worst case emergency kind of scenario. So I think I might have to just get over that, but it does, I mean, like, it's been a long time since I think we've seen free cash balance go down to such a small number there, but
AJ, that's about the same, the guidelines that's provided by the state, though. It may not be the same as the
Right.
policy that Susie talks about, but it is within the guidelines. And it's
Yep.
also what other towns have, And
Yeah.
George pointed out, we're going to get another infusion of cash at the end of this fiscal year into that account. It won't be available until the fall, but it will be certified, not even halfway through the fiscal year.
no, I understand. I just, it's just taking me a little time to absorb it and get comfortable with it. But yeah, I think, and I kind of agree with this contingency plan that you've designed. I think it would be, I think it's got to be, the school roof's got to, from my perspective, it's got to be funded out of our reserves. Hopefully it'll be a smaller number than what we're looking at here.
Should be.
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments as we look at this slide here?
Can you just make sure at the end of the meeting to send this final, or at least not final, but this current version of the spreadsheet back to us? Because
Yeah,
I think we're going to want to make sure this is all preserved.
yeah, I took a screenshot too.
Great, good.
Hit the save button, Becky.
Okay, well, if I do that, then you see my computer and everything. So are we done with this? Are we
Yeah,
actually
I think
moving
so.
on?
I think so.
We are.
All
I think we
right,
got to move on to warrants, right?
yeah. Now I'm saving everything now, so don't worry, people.
Okay, we can get into the warrants. Becky sent us earlier.
Right, and I'll send this out, the spreadsheet out. And okay, and did you guys want this on screen? The warrants?
Probably.
Yeah, probably best.
Okay.
These aren't all the warrant articles, are they, Becky?
The, what's not here? So there's 44 articles. They are all the administrative articles. I've got to go back through to make sure we've got,
You don't have any of the citizen petitions on here that I see.
correct. I did not put citizen petitions. You guys don't vote on citizen petitions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good.
But I made an attempt to have all the money articles on here.
All right. Mhm.
The number one is not a money article. I think there's a strong chance the finance committee might support number two.
Yeah.
This is the one where we had to take a victory lap around the town hall after we,
Yes. In our fictitious after meeting event at the AC.
What are we gonna do with all that time that we spend usually in our regular FinCom meetings on strategizing the regional school assessment process? Think we'll be able to fill up that time with something
yeah, I
else?
think so. I think we'll be okay.
We'll be all right?
We can do fundraisers doing relay races around the new track.
Great. Well, the only people in Shutesbury that use it.
Okay, do we need, as a finance committee, do we want to, okay, you're just gonna go ahead and,
Well, I need a count. You need to vote and we want to
Yeah.
make sure to have the numbers.
so why don't we go ahead and vote on this? Article
So
2?
do we need to do motions or do we trying to
You
remember.
could do one large, oh, yeah, you've got to do individual votes. So you have to do individual motion.
Yeah.
All
So I
right.
make a motion to accept Article 2 as written and recommend it.
I'll
I'll
second.
second that. Any further discussion?
Let me ask a question for clarification, Becky. This does not include the budget of the regional school agreement, does it?
No,
the
no.
agreement.
This is
That's a-
strictly the
This
regional.
is just the assessment method.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we can take a vote.
Arvanitis is not here, so we have to. understand.
Chartier, aye.
Mhm.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Closure, aye.
Welton, aye. One down out of how many? 40 something?
44?
You're not voting on all of them.
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
Do we even vote on the MLP because they're on a separate enterprise?
No, you still vote
Okay.
because town meeting votes. You have to advise town meeting.
Okay.
All right, so I'll make a motion for, I guess, how do I say it's for FinCom to recommend approval of Article 3 as written.
I'll second that.
And does this look like it matches up with what we agreed to when we met with the
I
MLP?
believe so. So this is, they briefly describe the money that they were, so that this is their free cash and how they want to spend it. And
Okay,
I believe they did bring it up.
Yes, they did.
yeah. Okay, any further discussion? And we can vote.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. Okay, Article 4.
So I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 4 as written.
Second,
I'll second. Any discussion?
no.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. You have to scroll down on us here.
Sorry. Okay, here's the library debt exclusion.
Why does that say 1.4 million?
Because I didn't know what number, that's,
Mhm.
I typed it from the one that was voted in 2011. And that was the
Okay.
cost that the amount we needed at that point in time. So it was I don't know what to put in this number yet. I'm in it here.
So we
Isn't
should
it-
vote
is-
on it.
Wouldn't it be 29? What's that? What's that, Bob?
Should we vote on with a blank? Should we sign a blank check here or what?
Well, we could look at the spreadsheet we just finished. I don't know. I don't
Didn't we
know.
talk about 2.335? 2.335 million?
That was 2.445, the number she provided us with.
No, that's a gross number, Bob,
Yeah.
and without the
Oh, I
money
see,
being
yeah.
subtracted. So we have everything from 1.8 to 2.3. Depending on how we solve their language problem with not to exceed.
So when do we do that?
Okay, so the next thing,
Yeah, I think we could meet when the select board meets, which is going to be on the 3rd. And maybe the language for this will be hammered out. We understand our path forward for it, but I don't think we have a number tonight. So I would say, I wonder if we meet when the select board meets just for this article.
for May 3rd, and we'll see if there's any other
That's a
articles.
good idea.
Yeah, I thought we were talking about a 2950 number minus six something that Trent, that came
Right,
out to 2335.
But Jim, that does not include any of the cash reserves that we just discussed.
Oh, as far as how we would allocate.
Yeah,
Okay, all
because
right.
this needs to be the net number.
Yeah. Okay,
So
I'm with,
if reserves are gonna go against it, you would put in the
Okay.
balance.
I'm with you.
In fact, wouldn't you have to have the article say, using this money from capital stabilization? It has to be specific that way, doesn't it? Like we did for the culvert.
Yep,
Yeah, okay, I got it. Yeah,
So maybe May 3rd.
that's a good target.
Good way to put it.
All right, so we're gonna pass over this for now.
Mhm.
Okay, what about Article 6? But we do know on Article 5, we're gonna have, it has to be a 2/3 vote because there's potential not only for the debt excluded override, but if there's any stabilization funds
Correct.
applied.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah, since we're moving it past beyond the library, and I still see there's quite a few library related people on here. I just acknowledge, thanks for the time and preparation and everything you all did to get us to this point here tonight. And we'll pick it up again on May 3rd.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the thoughtful conversation and all the time and energy that you put into to this. I was sort of taken aback earlier when somebody called the spreadsheet and the moving around money sleight of hand. So I just really appreciate how much time and effort and thoughtfulness that you put into this whole process. Thank you so much.
Quite welcome. Okay, what are we up to?
6.
6.
6.
Okay, this
So I'll
is
make a,
basically an administrative article, but it impacts compensation.
Does this include all the different discussions that we had?
No, this applies to elected positions only. It's totally
Administrative.
administrative.
Administrative? Okay. And so any discussion? Or we need a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve this article, Article 6 as written.
I'll second.
Recommend it. FinCom recommends second, yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, aye.
Closure, aye.
Walton, aye. Sorry. Getting late.
Yeah, it is.
Article 7. The budget.
The budget.
Well, I'll make the motion to recommend the budget in Article 7 as written.
I'll second. And Bob, you have your hand up.
I just want to have some conversation. I think there's some lines in this budget which I don't think that we've gone through together, and I don't want to vote in favor of the budget until we review the budget and expenses in detail on committee. So I would hope that we could put this one off to a future meeting when we've had a chance to do that.
And when do you propose that future meeting?
Whenever you're available.
So we'd have to do it this week.
This week? Really?
Or can we do it in combination with the May 3rd discussion on the library warrant?
Why don't we just have can we have a meeting on May 3rd, our own meeting, to do the library warrant and the budget?
What time is the select board meeting on the 3rd?
5:45.
But we don't really have to meet the select board, or do we?
We don't have to meet with them. We just have to understand the time frames.
Yeah, I guess, I just want to make sure I understand where you are. To me, it seems like we really have gone through all of these line items. Is there something in particular that we're missing here?
Well, I don't think that, I personally asked Susie was going to provide me with the latest version, a detailed version of the school budget. And I don't think I ever got that. And I wanted to look at that and discuss it in committee. And so that's part of this budget, the overall budget that we haven't reviewed. We had some contact with the school. We received one set of documents, then Bruce took off and received another, this PowerPoint presentation or something. And, I just don't know. I never, personally, maybe I missed it, but I never understood how much school choice money was being built, how much ESSER money, how much other sources of revenue were coming into the budget. I do know we had some bottom line numbers about how the budget was going to be affected, but
I just want to clarify.
That's one item I want to look at.
I want to clarify that we got a PowerPoint, but we also got the budget. We had 2 documents, and so we have the document, but if you need it, I don't know, Becky, do you have one to send him?
Just the one everyone was sent, everyone got the same one, and it hasn't changed. It's
Right.
an increase of $12,869 over last year's budget.
Right, and it has the ESSER funds and all those things listed on it, so I didn't know you were waiting on it, Bob, because everybody did get it, and I explained that it wasn't the PowerPoint, it was the budget.
Do you need me to resend it, Bob?
I would appreciate that. I'm not prepared to support it until I get to see it. So I didn't see the breakdown of the revenue and how it supported the budget. As you know, I've always felt that the school choice money should support the budget and not used as a discretionary fund. And again, I don't recall ever seeing, I did see a document after the PowerPoint. I did see it, but it didn't have the detail on the revenue side that I wanted.
Maybe, I feel like we did go through the budget in chunks. And maybe if Bob looks over the school one, we could go ahead and vote on Article 7 at the May 3rd meeting. We can meet before the select board and just decide whether we're going to recommend this or not. But I feel like I'm familiar with this budget, and I feel I can bring it to town meeting and as a recommendation.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because I don't feel that we ever went through it line by line. We did spend some time on it, but we didn't do the whole thing in my recollection. So I think it would be a good thing for me at least to do that before I vote on it. So I would appreciate if the rest of the committee would take some time to do that.
So May 3rd, Bob, that
would be great for me. I will do it.
The one problem I have is the select board needs to vote on the warrant on May 3rd. So they will need these two issues potentially resolved.
Maybe we do it May 2nd and May 3rd.
May 2nd, let's see. May 2nd. Is that okay with anybody else? Everybody else? Short meeting, Jim?
Well, when you say a short meeting, you're looking to go over, what are you proposing, Bob? That you want to go
Proposing
through
that people have the budget before them, and any questions that any member might have could be answered, and then we'd be done with it. Have a
Okay, 'cause I
discussion
think
about whatever article.
We've had at least three different versions of the budget has been put together, said to us.
I know that, yes, I do, and I do know we spent time on them, but I don't think we've ever went over the final draft or the final version. And I haven't.
The one that we just received is very similar to the version before. It's identical pretty
Well,
much on the revenues.
there were two changes.
Yeah.
I just input the salary issues that were approved at the meeting prior.
Yeah, I mean, I want us to be comfortable with going forward. If everybody is available on the 2nd, we can spend some time on the 2nd to go over any questions. I guess all I'd request is if we could look at this in advance and have our questions or any issues ready in advance of the meeting, so we can not tie up too much time.
I'd be happy to do that, sir.
Yeah.
And we could also maybe get the information we need to do the library article and get that sorted here, before it goes over to the select board.
Yeah, that was my suggestion. Could we, ideally, it'd be great if we didn't have to meet on the 2nd and the 3rd again, just to deal with the library article. So would we be able to tackle both issues in a short meeting on the 2nd? And could we also commit to like sort of keeping that discussion pretty focused on the elementary school budget as opposed to the whole entire budget, since I feel like there have been very few and very minor changes to the rest, really to the budget, which we've been looking at every one of our recent meetings. So it seems like if we could kind of focus that conversation on any questions people have about the school budget, that might help to keep it short.
Do you know if in the past the FinCom has approved the operating budget in chunks, like we've just gone to the bottom of general government? It's just the same way the town moderator leads it.
Yep, that's been done.
Well, see, for me, it would be useful if we took that kind of approach, Susie, because last year I did vote to support the budget, but I had some issues with some of the lines. And there was some discussion about whether it was legitimate to discuss those lines after I voted to support the budget. And I don't think it doesn't make any sense to me that you might support the budget, but that you might have a problem, you might have a dissenting viewpoint on one or more lines, and that therefore you should have to vote against the budget. So that's something I would like to make clear in advance of town meeting, that if I have a minority, or any of us have a minority position on any of these lines, we could still support the budget as recommended to town meeting with some reservations, if you will. Does that make sense?
I don't understand what you're trying to say, Bob.
What I'm saying is that we have an article here that supports the entire budget. So the FinCom is going to vote to recommend that budget up or down, recommend or not recommend. Presumably, it's going to vote to recommend. If I had an issue with, say, one line, say, whatever, it could be OPEB, I don't know, and I didn't agree with the rest of the committee, and I had a dissenting vote about that line, then I would like to be able to support the budget and still be able to have a dissenting view expressed at town meeting about that line.
Bob, this is, you've been back and forth a number of times for the last 3 years about how to do a dissenting point of view. And I think the moderator has been very clear on how that has to happen. And it can't be done from the finance committee table. It needs to be done as an individual for each member of the finance committee. So I don't know if you're trying to suggest that should change, but I don't think it's up to the finance committee. It's, it goes back to rules that the moderator follows and that we all follow.
That's a rather discretionary thing, because it's actually written in our charge that we have a right to express minority viewpoints in the finance committee.
Paul is raising his hand. I think Paul wants to give some clarity on this. So
Thank
Paul,
you, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you see me and hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay,
Looks
great.
like Twilight Zone, but we
Yeah,
can
you've
see.
got
you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't have the
That's
best
okay.
lighting here for this. I just want to clarify that I welcome minority reports that the committee has discussed and agreed will be or can be presented. So it's basically just a sanctioning, of a minority report. Those can be delivered from the table. I'm absolutely fine with that. If the committee has not agreed to, let a subgroup of the finance committee present a minority report, then it essentially the option becomes individual members can go to the audience microphone and say whatever they want. But if you decide that you want to allow a minority report and you approve that in one of your meetings, then I'm absolutely fine with that happening from the finance committee table.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
I just want to return to my original question, which is, what we think about it. We'll talk about it at our meeting on Monday, because we're going to be voting on the budget then, right?
We can do that if the team is all on board with that. If we want to
Okay.
go, if we're all on board with supporting this approach, to picking this up on Monday and ironing out any questions that still might be out there.
Thank you.
Okay. Paul, is your hand up still or newly up?
Sorry, I'll take it down.
All right. Okay, we'll pick up Mike now.
Yeah, I just have a question on that. So if I hear Paul right, he said that if the Finance Committee agrees that a minority report is appropriate, then it can be given from the table there or whatever. But if it's a minority report, I don't see that the Finance Committee is going to vote in favor of it. I don't, it seems like it's going to be a mutually exclusive type thing, or a catch-22, where if someone has a minority report to give, they have to get approval from the rest of the group who is against it to begin with. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Okay. Moving on, we're gonna hold off on Article 7 for tonight. Move to Article 8.
So I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of Article 8 as written.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Susie, are you muted?
She's muted.
Mosier, aye.
All right, Walt and I. All right, Article 9. Another capital item.
I'd like to make a motion that the Finance Committee recommend Article 9 as written.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Vote.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye. Article 10. The
This
truck.
one we modified in our
changed.
plan, and we changed it to borrow.
Okay, we also, on our agenda for tonight, we had dump truck updated quotes. So Susan, or Becky, do you want to
Sure.
let us know what that's about as far as updated quotes?
So when Tim went back to Peterbilt to confirm pricing, and they came back informing him that they had a $20,000 to $25,000 increase on his price. So he didn't stop there. He kept pushing, and he got a new quote. He verified the MAC quote, and then went on to International and got a new quote from International that has come in at the $225,000. So he's able to keep the request at the same amount. But it's not with the Peterbilt truck any longer. It's with an International truck.
Okay, so we're still good with 225.
Yeah.
All right, so we've killed 2 items on the agenda here at once.
And we want to change the wording of Article 10 to say to borrow.
That's to see if the town will vote to borrow up to $225,000.
Yeah.
For a new dump truck for the highway department.
Yep. And the fact that we think this comes out of our operating debt service line, does that have to be indicated, Becky, or is this good enough?
This is fine. Yeah.
Is that line still present in the budget, Becky?
Which line, Bob?
The debt service line?
Yeah. 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 Well, That's an interesting problem, Susie.
Yeah, it is.
Because the plan, it's currently in the budget to go to stabilization.
Right.
I thought what went to stabilization is anything that didn't get borrowed. The balance.
Well, you have to write that in the article.
And so how should the article be written?
Well,
It's got to be reworked for Monday.
yes, we will leave it at that for the moment because it's 2 or 3 different things
Yeah.
that have to happen.
Yeah, this is, so do we want to hold off on this one
Yeah.
until Monday?
And do we want to restrict it only to borrowing or leave open an option to transfer?
Can the article be written to allow for both options? Or?
You can allow it for both options and then the motion would determine what you're going to do.
I think that our plan already went into reserves. So rather than transfer, I'm feeling it should be in the borrow column.
I support the idea of having an option in that article personally, but if we're gonna approve the truck.
So are you going to vote the truck tonight or should we do
I
that?
think we have to
Monday?
sort out all those details, don't you, Becky, before we
Yeah,
vote?
I think we need to hold this one to Monday and I'm gonna, if that's, sorry.
No? Good on Tim to make it work.
Yeah, it took a couple, well, it took most of the week, but he got it figured out.
Okay. Article 11. This is the and the roof engineering.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of Article 11 as written.
Second.
Any discussion? In a vote.
Chartier, aye.
Rose, aye.
Hemingway, aye.
Cashew, aye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye. And Article 12, vote 54,000 for new SUV, police department. 54,000. Okay, that was the most recent, that was the most updated. That's the final number for that is 54,000. Because I know that
She didn't ever change her number and I apologize. There might have been a little, it might be a little over.
because I
know
thought
that
the
it's
combination of the two, there was some,
AJ, could you check your notes? Oh,
Yeah.
that was, I'm thinking of what was approved at the last meeting.
Well, they said it was 99 and I can see that 45 and 54 wouldn't be 99, but there was some on the cap plan numbers that we had gotten before that they did not add up to 99. So we wondered if one of these numbers has been captured wrong.
I think the 54 is missing additional information. So I'll look that up.
Okay.
But it's like under $1,000 more.
Oh,
Is-
so
So maybe it's 100,000 total.
There's
Well,
separate articles.
it's like 680 or something.
680.
so we do want to check it against what.
I'm
cap
sorry, it's
plan-
like 54,680. So
Okay.
I'm pulling up from Michael Broad right now, because I believe it's in his minutes that he did for capital planning.
Oh, I might have it. Let's see.
Minutes from 3/16. No, that's not the minutes.
Can I ask a question? Should it say what fund it's transferring from for 12 and 13?
Yes, it should say free cash. So thank you, Melody. I will add that as soon as we find, here's the minutes. Okay,
See, I have on the
okay, we're good. It was 53,377.
okay, yeah.
So we're okay at 54.
I'll have to go back to Article 11. Is that 60,000 coming from capital stabilization, or was it coming from free cash on our chart, which I don't have in front of me?
I think I thought you had it, I'll put it from free, the new chart had it, it
From
moved
free-
around a couple times.
I think.
But what George presented tonight, last night, it was they were all free cash.
Yeah. So that
So-
needs to be edited on Article 11.
Right. Do we need to
It was,
revote
I
that?
just did that.
Mhm.
Yeah, we better.
I'm sorry.
Right. So I'm going to make a motion to recommend approval of Article 11 as just amended.
From
Second.
free cash.
Yep.
Right.
and then it's from free cash.
Okay.
Transfer up to $60,000 from free cash.
Free cash. And
Paul,
Yeah, I'll keep my video off this time so I don't scare
Yeah.
anybody. Yeah, I just wanted to suggest that you just keep the wording of these articles as general or open as possible. I mean, just hearing a lot of the earlier discussion tonight when you're discussing your spreadsheet, it's clear that, you know, other changes may happen on town meeting floor. And if you can say, you know, to transfer from available funds or something like that, instead of identifying from free cash or capital stabilization, then that doesn't pigeonhole you so much. So I'm just wondering if that might be an option for many of these articles.
Paul?
I think, Becky,
Yeah.
you want to, you have a comment to that?
Yeah, Paul, my concern, I mean, the whole point of the spreadsheet is to track the balances on the funds with the different decisions made. So what you're suggesting could have very unpredictable results.
There's another aspect to that, Becky, which is that some of the stabilization accounts require a 2/3 vote and the cash account does not. So it's important that when we have the article that we identify the source, because it does have ramifications
Right.
about how it's voted for.
Yeah,
And the
agree
other,
with
and the
that as
other
well.
thing is we've got targets that we need to aim for within each of these cash accounts: stabilization, capital stabilization, and free cash. And making changes on the fly at the meeting, we might end up in a place where we get out of alignment with one of those accounts.
Yeah, and if you overdraw one of those accounts, you've got a big mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand all of that. I just, you know, hearing how much time was spent tonight, you know, changing things, moving them around, you know, I just wonder if this year is a little more unusual than most, but fine. And, you know, I'm fine with whatever you decide.
Yeah, one other way to get at this is to focus on the capital plan and the spreadsheet, and we come to an agreement as a committee with the spreadsheet and how it's allocated before moving through these warrant articles. That's the other approach. Bob.
Oh, I already spoke, so
Oh,
I
you
bring my
did?
hand down.
I didn't hear you speak.
Dude, I spoke to Paul about the issue of the.
Susie.
And I think it's important to have a coherent plan and to show that we understand the difference. And I think, Paul, you were in on a big night. We've been sort of building to this. We've been thinking about things, but this was the night to do this work. And that's why it looks like there was a lot of work. But I feel we have come to a place that we see the financial plan and we want to advocate for that and not end up seeming like we don't know where the money's going to come from.
Okay, where are we?
I think
we're
there's a
on-
motion on the floor to
For
recommend
the-
approval of Article 11 as we've just amended it.
Okay, and that was to amend it to go to from free cash.
Yeah.
Right. Town
Right.
will vote to transfer up to $60,000 from free cash for design and engineering of the replacement of the school roof.
Any further discussion on that? We can vote.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. All right, Article 12. Now, we are okay with this 54,000? This does
Yes.
look,
Yes.
okay. All right. And we have free cash.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to recommend Article 12 as amended to say free cash.
I'll second. Any further discussion? Bob?
I'm just gonna say, I'm not gonna vote in favor of the vehicles this year because I think it's the worst year in recent history to buy a vehicle. And also the vehicles that are, with the exception of Walter's vehicle, the other vehicles are in good condition as far as I can tell. And also, finally, the last thing is that 3 departments that requesting vehicles are all scheduled to get new leaders this year. And I'd see it be practical and reasonable that the new leaders get in on the selection of these vehicles. So I will not vote for to recommend these articles.
When you say articles, you're talking these 2? Or
There's
are
3
you
articles
the
for
truck?
vehicles.
Oh, we already voted on the truck.
We didn't vote on, it's supposed,
Okay, okay, but okay, so you have an issue with the truck and the 2
I
SUVs.
just don't think it's, not that I don't support the departments getting vehicles in a timely way, but this is a bad year to get them unless they're really urgently needed. And like I said, there's another issue with personnel, and the heads of those departments will be hired this year. And then I think they should be in on the selection of the vehicle.
I think we're ready to take a vote.
Yeah, unless there's any other comments or discussion. Jim?
Yes, I agree with Bob on this one. I think we ought to wait.
Becky?
I just want to mention that part of the problem with waiting is, I know these vehicles might take a while to get here, but I heard that vehicles that are just being, if you wait to start purchasing, they're going to run out of the vehicles that are complete because of the chips in vehicles. And so you could get in a position where you can't even get a vehicle for over 1.5 years. So and I think the pricing that we are looking at is identical to the pricing we looked at last year, and in Walter's case is lower. And those are my points.
Susie?
And I'm going to say that I'm going to vote to follow the capital plan recommendation. So that's my basis.
Okay. Any other comment? Okay, move forward with a vote.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, nay.
Hemingway, nay.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I.
Passes 4-2.
Okay, Article 13. And at 45,000 is still a good number.
Yes.
Free cash.
Mhm.
Yeah. Any
So
discussion?
I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 13 as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? And we can vote.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, nay.
Hemingway, nay.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. Yeah, just a comment from me on both of those items, all 3 of these. The Capital Planning Committee recommended them. They're also, the department heads felt strongly the need for these vehicles at this time. So I think we'd be at some level disempowering department heads as well as the Capital Planning Committee.
And I also agree with whoever made the comment about inflation and pricing. I think if we were to wait, it could go up exponentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, 14, Article 14. Is this one of
We have
ours?
to vote on that?
No, it's not a financial article.
Okay,
It's a bylaw change.
but 15 is one.
Yes.
And I recall we went through this discussion on this with the team. This
Didn't.
was,
We haven't seen this, have we?
No, I
No,
think
no,
you
I don't
haven't
think
seen
so.
this. The CPC, this is their administrative costs in Article 15. Well, where the funds that are received this year, they take a third, and a third, and put the money into these categories.
Okay,
Okay,
this is standard stuff. It has nothing to do with projects. Correct. Okay,
Right, it's
What-
how
what's-
their funding is split up, so their fund balances are what are used for the projects.
so I vote for the FinCom to recommend Article 15 as written.
second.
I just have a question. What, the 32,000, Becky?
Yeah. Okay, so the town basically gets like 47,000 a year. And I'm sorry, 3 of them get, it's 10. It's about 10% each. But go into the 3 funds, and then the balance goes into the budgeted reserve, which can be used for any of the 3 topics: the open space, historic, or community housing.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? We can vote.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. Article 16.
This is just the administrative segment. The other ones were for the different funds. This is just the administration. I vote to recommend Article 16.
A second.
Any discussion? Vote.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. Article 17.
This is the project that Miriam came and talked to us about, and it's coming out of Historic Preservation Fund balance. Where is that? Must be
For the guide board.
for the guide board.
on
And
town
we
hall.
voted on this, did we not? Or
No, you haven't.
not as a
voted.
committee?
No,
This is what, Miriam?
yes, Miriam is putting this project forward with it as the Historical Commission.
Okay, any discussion?
Yes, Jim,
Yep,
I was asked to bid on this, so I'm going to recuse myself from this vote. I think that's probably the right thing to do, right?
Yeah,
yes. Any other discussion? Okay, we can vote.
Chartier, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. Yeah, does that count as is recusal the same as an abstention?
I'm just gonna put in the notes, Bob
Okay.
Groves recuses.
Yeah, I think that would be,
you want me to add that here, Bob?
Sure, if that's what the right thing to do is, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Okay, Article
W.
18.
Article 18, I had a question. I don't know where the recreation fund is. I couldn't find it in our monthly sheets. Expense report.
I don't think they're there, Susie.
Oh. Okay.
No,
So
the
there's
funds
such a
are,
thing as-
they're
as-
separate.
They're very separate. Okay.
Yeah, they're
Um,
not part of the budget.
Oh, I thought it would be in these things called other special revenue funds or.
No, I never used to see them there.
Okay, do we have any idea what the
Because it's,
balance,
I'm sorry, what?
we know what their balance is? Or,
Which one?
Article 18 from the Recreation Fund.
Okay, so that's the same as open space.
Yeah.
So, no, I just know the total amount. We'd have to get a report from them to know exactly.
Okay, but it's just there's a fund, there's some funds listed somewhere else and they have balances and this is gonna appropriate 22,000 from it, right?
Right, so basically there's like over 400,000, like 440 in total. The bulk of it, like 70% can be used on different, any of the projects. The funds where 10% of the money is allocated every year are dedicated to historical open space or housing.
Right. So just as the first article showed the three.
Oh, I'm sorry, I get it. Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
no, it's good to ask questions.
Any other questions? Paul?
Yeah, sorry for jumping in, but I want to make sure that the wording gets worked out on these articles before you guys vote, so you don't have to come back and revote them later. I see on the next Article 19 that money is being requested from the open space / recreation fund balance. So I would just suggest that both of these articles, if they're coming from the same fund, that the wording is the same in these two. And I believe they're the same fund that we're talking about, right, Becky?
Yeah, because recreation and open space are the same. Yeah,
That's a category of CPC money, right? And
Yeah.
it must have a name, okay.
Correct.
That's it.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Any other discussion or comments? And we can vote.
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye.
so that was unanimous, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Paul, I'd put your hand down unless, or we're gonna, we might miss you the next time.
Okay, thanks.
Article 19. Or, yeah,
Yeah, I think that's right. You just voted Article
Yeah.
8.
yep. Are we okay wording wise here? Consistency?
Yep.
Any comments?
I'd like to ask a question. I don't know if Becky or Rita has the answer, but that lot was purchased, that's our contribution to the purchase price, or that's the purchase price?
Just the town contribution. I think the purchase price is at least 250, maybe
Yeah, that's
300,000.
what I thought, yes. So
Yeah,
the Kestrel Trust is coming up with the other sum?
Quite a bit of it. Plus, the Conservation Commission is putting up money from their fund
I see.
because they have authority to do that without a town meeting vote.
Okay, thank you.
I think they're putting up around 35,000.
Any other questions, comments? Vote?
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, aye. Okay. Somewhere down there is Article 20.
All
This
right,
is not changing the money. I'm not sure that we would vote on this. It's just to move it, right? It's already been appropriated.
Which one are we on? Which one are you referring to?
20,
they're changing
Okay.
the location from behind Town Hall to Lotto 32, but I don't think,
it's
so,
it's already been approved for the money. There's no money in this one, just where it will be.
but they are asking for the money. This could be a problem if they duplicate the money again.
No, but it says that it was appropriated in 2021.
21.
Yeah, so this is just a
And they
relocation.
shouldn't ask, then they shouldn't have asked to approve them.
Rita, it sounds like you might have something to
I don't
weigh in
think
on
we
this.
need the money. here.
So Donna McNichol wrote this language, and it's just saying that the $20,000 was already approved for the community garden at the town hall, but now that same money will be used for the community garden at Lot 032. So it's changing the location, but not asking for a change in any amount of money.
Okay,
Yeah, and you could interpret it that way. Yeah, approve that the 20,000 appropriated in 21. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so it's
So
good.
it's not, this is not a money
No.
article. This is simply
Okay.
a change in the wording.
Yeah, so back to Susie's point, then we shouldn't really have to
Vote on it.
vote on this, right? We're not
Right.
looking to,
Right.
Okay, move on.
you know,
and the zoning articles, does anyone see any financial aspect to the zoning articles?
No.
Oh, no.
So then we're at 23.
Yeah. Chapter 90 might, supposedly we're gonna get some extra chapter 90 this year. Can't wait to see it.
And do we usually vote on this one or no?
Oh,
Yes.
It's just
We
to
do?
vote to accept and expend.
I have a vague memory that we took these next several
Right.
articles and voted on them as a block, right?
Great idea.
Right, right, the
Yeah.
consent articles.
Consent article.
So that's 23 through what?
26?
Yeah,
All right. So I'd like to make a motion that we
recommend.
recommend approval of Articles 23 through 26.
Second.
Chartier,
Yeah.
aye.
well, any questions or comments? I'm ready to vote too.
Okay.
Just make sure there's no questions, comments, concerns before we go ahead with vote. Okay, I'm sorry, Melody.
Sorry, Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I. Thanks, AJ, for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Yeah. Get a coffee?
So, then we have the revolving funds article.
Did anything
So there's,
change?
yeah, there's nothing new here, right?
Right.
All right, so I'll make a motion to approve, sorry, to recommend approval of Article 27.
A second. Any discussion? Vote?
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, eye.
Mosier, aye.
Walton, I.
Okay.
All right.
Ripping right along.
Okay, so now that you guys have really ramped up your pace, we
Yeah,
just,
you got to keep up with us, Becky.
well, so now we've got this problem and, okay, so from Kevin Rudin, our assessor, has discovered that we did not have all the latest updates of tax exemptions for seniors or veterans on our books. So he has sent 15 warrant articles to make specific updates. I mean, for the town to vote, to be sure that we set a baseline and know that everything has been voted, because things that were assumed to be voted, he could not find town meeting votes for. So to be safe and to cover all grounds, like Kevin is prone to do, he is recommending that all these 15 articles get approved. He has on another sheet listed what these, in a brief explanation, what all these articles do. I need to send that to you, but what I don't know if you guys feel comfortable just voting them all. I was feeling that I would like him to give us a sense of economic impact for these different articles. And I was thinking you guys might need that ahead of voting on them.
When you say an economic impact, it's going to have an impact on our budget or
Revenue.
on revenue, on our revenue for 23. Yes.
Okay, so some of there's one in here that the exemption will go from $500 to $1,000. There's a blind exemption that wasn't on the books, that's $500. So there's potential, but that there might be more costs that the assessors might have to fund more exemptions than they have in the past. And I don't know where that is at, and I have not had a chance to talk to Kevin.
Can we ask Kevin to do kind of a little summary and report on the implications of these and have him speak to us on the second about the.
I can see if he's available, and I will send you the summary sheet because I ended up because of the, to make the warrant format the same, I had to eliminate all his explanations. So I want to send you guys all his explanations and then ask him if he can be available for your meeting on the 2nd, and see if he could send something ahead if he's not available. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that if we got the sheet that describes what each one of these articles does, what the law does, that might be adequate for us. These are all things that we've been on the books for a long time, and some of which we're already employing in our tax assessments. Then this might just be a routine, but I would like to see at least a description of what each article means.
It might be enough, but at this point in time, maybe we just make sure that Kevin's available or someone is available in the 2nd in case we do have questions.
Well, I'll make sure okay, I'm going to forward. I can put up his thing on the screen now if you want, but I'm forwarding you
Well,
his
I'd like
further
a chance to look them over. This
explanations, so
seems
you'll
like
have-
there's a lot of detail there that might not have time tonight. We're going to be meeting Monday. But if I had that list forwarded to me, that certainly would be useful for me.
Okay, so I just forwarded it. I'm going to just give you a sample real quick of, where is it? Microsoft ATM warrants. Okay, so this is what he did. So, for example, Article 1, to see if Shutesbury will vote to accept MGL Chapter 59. He puts in purpose. This will increase the whole estate limit granted to a senior surviving spouse or minor child of a deceased parent.
Yep.
And then the next one is, yeah,
All right. Yeah, that'd be helpful. This document.
Yeah, you'll forward that to us?
I already did, yeah,
Okay, great.
okay.
Thanks, Becky. So we'll pick up again on those 15 on the 2nd.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
It's gonna be a big meeting on the 2nd.
I know, well,
this short meeting, will be about 3.5 hours.
I'm worried about Kevin there.
Okay. You gonna put,
Jim, also, will you be if you can post the meeting tonight so we don't blow the deadline?
okay. Do we want 6:30 or 7?
6:30 works for me.
Yeah, 6:30.
Okay. Monday at 6:30.
Mhm.
So I'll just let you know, I have another meeting at 8:30, so I'm gonna have to wrap up at
That'd be
8:30.
Okay.
Do you want to try to start at 6?
Works for me.
That's fine.
All right. 6 on Monday.
And Jim, you're posting tonight?
Will do. If we're done, we might be done in the morning. Mm.
Okay.
Let's see, there's Susie and then Mary Ann.
I just wanted to say, if our committee people look over the explanations that Becky just sent us and send any questions to Kevin, we can focus his input. I don't really want him to go to great lengths to explain everyone. So if we have questions, we should ask them in writing to him.
That'd be great.
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah. Mary Ann.
So you're gonna meet at 6 o'clock on Monday. Is the library first on the agenda? Just so that I can tell the trustees.
Sure.
Well, how does that work? How does that work? I think we have flexibility. We've got a number of agenda items. What fits best for your team?
That fits just fine for us. And so the trustees meet at 7:30 on Monday. We don't want to leave it, so you tell me. I just want to be able to tell them what time. So,
We could start off with library.
okay,
6 o'clock.
all right. Okay, 6
o'clock.
o'clock. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Right. Okay, where is that? Where are those warrant articles?
There were 28 through 42. Done.
That's it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah.
is there a Celtics game on Monday?
It depends. I think it depends on what Milwaukee does tonight. Yeah.
Because we'll have to bear that in mind. We have to cancel.
Oh, I might be no,
Well,
pretty
don't
amazing.
worry. Not to worry, Bob. My mom can text us play-by-play
Okay.
description
maybe
of
put
the
on a
game.
second
Doesn't-
split screen.
Yeah,
All
we
right.
won't miss a play.
All right, looking at the agenda here, do we get everything? It looks like we got library, warrant article.
We have the, Becky, do we have Melissa's transfer? Do we have to do that tonight?
That would be a good thing, yes. Melissa is she has finished her real estate appraisals required by the Ethics Commission. And you guys might recall, we've done one for the Concom chair and a couple of other people this year. The cost for each of the real estate appraisals is $500, and there were 3 for Melissa. She got the first one done, and then when her mother and her grandmother passed away, and she has taken over the additional 2 properties. Which all of them,
But they're all but.
the potential solar.
Yeah.
So she's asking for 1,500 from the FinCom reserve?
Yes,
That's
yeah.
right. I
And when
make a
she
mo-
first brought it up, that's what the select board instructed her to do.
I
Okay,
make a
look-
motion, move 1,500 from the FinCom reserve to pay for appraisals for, that doesn't go to the select board. How does it go?
It'll be reimbursing Melissa Makepeace
Okay.
Yeah,
O'Neill.
the same way that the others have done.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll second that.
And if it could be, it could be that it went directly to, it will go directly to the lawyer. If you can say either, keep it open. I'm just not sure in the timing if she's already paid or not.
Wouldn't we, we wouldn't do this the same way as the prior ones?
Well, I just want to be sure, because if she hasn't paid them yet, no, just do it to Melissa and then she can pay them. That's fine.
Yeah.
Let's not make it complicated.
That was the motion we already had, right?
Yes,
Yep,
going back in time.
yep. Paul,
Well, my comment was unrelated to this topic, so maybe you should finish up with this.
okay, all right. Any further discussion on this topic? And we proceed with the vote?
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, aye.
Closure, aye.
Walton, aye.
Okay, now Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that a couple of years ago, I had requested that the Finance Committee, that we actually include the Finance Committee votes on all of the financial articles in the warrant so that townspeople could see if your votes were unanimous or not. And part of the reason was that if people see that it was not a unanimous vote, I want them to have the opportunity to question the Finance Committee. So in lieu of, or in addition to the possibility of having formal minority reports, the other option is for someone to say, you know, could you tell me why there were dissenting votes on that particular article? And at that point, I would be referring that question to the chair of the Finance Committee. At that point, you, Jim, could, you know, just explain the nature of the vote, or actually ask another member of the committee to explain themselves. So that's kind of the other option that I had presented to you folks. I just wanted to remind you of that, so that the voters, I mean, the bottom line for me is that the voters have as much information as possible so that they can make fully informed decisions on these motions. So either formal minority reports, or you, the chairperson, addressing questions that arise from the floor. Either one of those are absolutely, you know, legitimate and fine with me. And that's the reason why we wanted to have I wanted to have the actual votes recorded in the warrant.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that, Paul. Okay, I think we've covered our agenda. We still have one that we have to come back to on Monday. Anything else that we need to cover tonight before we close? Okay, a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Okay. Melody?
Chartier, aye.
Groves, aye.
Hemingway, I.
Cashew, aye.
Closure, aye.
Walton, aye. We'll see you all soon.
See you soon.
Right. Good night, everyone.
Okay.
Have a good night,
All
everyone.
right, have a good night.